Part 1. The swipe that broke me. When I tell you that I wasn't planning on catching my own husband red-handed, I mean it. This wasn't some movie script plot, nor a carefully calculated test. It started like a whisper in the back of my mind, the kind of thought you brush off, laugh at, and yet it keeps circling back until you can't breathe without wondering if it's true. That whisper was simple. What if he's not as faithful as you think? The cracks in the glass. Daniel and I had been married for 8 years. 8 years of Sunday morning coffee runs, of half-burnt pancakes when he tried to surprise me, of lazy evenings with Netflix humming in the background while I fell asleep against his chest. 8 years of shared secrets, whispered promises, and a marriage that, at least on the outside, looked steady, solid, enviable even. But people forget something. Glass looks perfect until you notice the hairline crack. Then, no matter how small, you can't unsee it. And with time, pressure, and enough weight, that crack splinters until the whole thing shatters. For me, the first crack appeared when Daniel started guarding his phone. It sounds small, right? Lots of people are protective of their devices. But this was different. Daniel used to leave his phone lying face up on the counter, buzzing with texts from his sister or notifications from ESPN. If I picked it up to silence an alarm, he didn't blink. If I used it to look something up, he didn't care. But then it changed. Suddenly, his phone was always on him. Shower? On the sink within arm's reach. Dinner? Face down beside his plate. Watching TV. In his hand, thumb hovering, scrolling endlessly. And if I walked into the room unexpectedly, he'd lock it with a speed that felt rehearsed. First, I told myself it was nothing. Maybe work was stressful. Maybe he was planning something for me. Maybe I was paranoid. But the human mind is cruel. Once suspicion plants its seed, it grows like ivy, curling through every thought, squeezing until it consumes you. I started noticing other things. The late nights at the office. The new cologne I hadn't bought him. The way he'd shower the moment he got home, before even saying hello sometimes. His laughter, bright, genuine, echoing through closed doors as he typed away on his phone, only to silence the second I walked in. And every time I asked, he brushed it off with a casualness that felt performed. Babe, relax, it's just work. You're overthinking again. If I was hiding something, do you think I'd be this obvious? The last one stung. Not because it reassured me, but because it sounded like a line he'd practiced. The breaking point, the moment that pushed me over the edge, wasn't dramatic. No lipstick on a collar. No strange perfume on his shirt. It was a Tuesday night. We were sitting on the couch, and Daniel was answering work emails. I leaned over to rest my head against his shoulder, and his body stiffened. It wasn't the normal, "I'm focused, don't distract me" kind of stiff. It was defensive, as if my nearness threatened to expose something. I tilted my head slightly and caught a glimpse of his screen. Not enough to see the words, just enough to see a bubble of text long dotted with emojis. Not work. No one sends emojis in a work email. When he noticed my angle, he quickly tilted the screen away, smiled too broadly, and kissed my forehead. "You're nosy, you know that?" I laughed, but my stomach twisted into knots. That night, while he snored softly beside me, I stared at the ceiling, eyes burning, heart pounding. I realized I couldn't go on like this. I needed to know. I needed proof. But how do you catch a liar who's careful? Who's smart? Who knows you inside and out, and can read your suspicions before you even voice them? You outsmart him. Clara. The idea came to me in pieces, like shattered glass reforming into something sharp. If Daniel was using dating apps, I could find him. But I couldn't use my own photo, obviously. And a stock image would be too risky. Reverse image searches exist. So I turned to technology. There are sites that generate faces, realistic, flawless, yet belonging to no one. People who don't exist, yet look as if they could walk right past you on the street. That's where I found her. She had long blonde hair that cascaded in waves, sharp green eyes that seemed to see through you, and a smile that balanced between sweet and dangerous. She was magnetic. Not a model, not fake-looking, just alluring. Her name, I decided, would be Clara. I created the profile slowly, carefully, crafting each word to be enticing but not desperate. Life's too short for boring conversations. Show me something real. That was it. Minimalist. Intriguing. A hook without revealing too much. When the profile was complete, I stared at it for a long time, my pulse racing. I felt guilty, dirty even, as if I were betraying my own vows. But then I thought of Daniel's secretive smiles, his sudden distance, the late nights. And the guilt hardened into resolve. I wasn't here to cheat. I was here to uncover the truth. The swipe. I set the app's location radius small, close enough to only capture people nearby. My stomach twisted as I began swiping, faces blurring together. None of them him. My breath came shallow, each flick of my thumb carrying the weight of hope and dread tangled together. And then, there he was. Daniel. The photo nearly knocked the air out of me. It wasn't an old one either. He was at the beach, drink in hand, grinning at the camera like the carefree, fun-loving man I'd fallen in love with. His bio? Almost identical to the one he'd written years ago when we first met on a different app. Work hard, play harder. Looking for someone spontaneous. It wasn't outdated. It was active, recent, alive. My vision blurred with tears. I whispered to myself, please let this be a mistake. Please let this be old. But deep down I knew. With shaking hands I swiped right. Not even 5 minutes later it happened. It's a match. My chest constricted. The world tilted. My husband, lying in bed beside me, arm draped across my waist, had just matched with Clara. With me. The app pinged. A new message. Daniel. Hey gorgeous. Didn't expect to find someone like you on here. What brings you to this app? The screen blurred through my tears. My husband, the man who had promised me forever, was already flirting with a stranger. And that stranger was me. The dual reality. I stared at the message for what felt like hours. On one side of me was Daniel, my husband, snoring softly, his hand twitching as if chasing something in a dream. On the other side was my phone, glowing with a message from him. A man who had no idea the woman he was chasing wasn't real. The duality was nauseating. In one world I was his wife. In another I was his target. My heart pounded so loud I thought it might wake him. I set the phone down, closed my eyes and whispered to myself, don't answer. Don't do this. But the whisper that had started this whole mess returned, stronger than ever. If you don't answer, you'll never know who he really is. The trap tightens. I picked up the phone again. My thumbs hovered above the screen, trembling. What do you say to your own husband when he doesn't know it's you? Finally, I typed, Clara. Maybe I'm just curious. What about you? What are you looking for? I hit send. My chest tightened as if I just crossed a line I could never uncross. Within seconds, the typing dots appeared. He was awake. He was texting her. He was texting me. I felt the world collapse in slow motion. And that's how it started, the game I never wanted to play, the one where the man I loved would show me exactly who he was when he thought I wasn't looking. I just didn't know then how fast the game would spiral or how much it would destroy. Part 2. The conversation that shattered me. I should have stopped after that first message. I should have closed the app, deleted Clara, and told myself that ignorance is bliss. But once you open a door, once you peek behind the curtain, it's impossible to turn away. Curiosity isn't just a whisper anymore. It becomes a scream, and you can't rest until you hear every word. And so when the typing bubbles popped up under Daniel's name, I froze, heart hammering against my ribs, feeling like I was seconds away from either salvation or destruction. The first lies. Daniel. What am I looking for? Let's just say a distraction. Something exciting. Life gets boring when it's the same routine every day. I read it once. Twice. My stomach flipped inside out. A distraction. That's what I was. That's what our marriage had become to him. A routine he was desperate to escape. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. Part of me wanted to confront him immediately, to throw my phone across the room and shake him awake, scream, "You already have excitement. You have me." But another part of me, the darker part, needed to see more. I needed to know exactly who my husband was when he thought no one was watching. Clara. Routine can be deadly. So what kind of excitement are you hoping to find? I sent it, every letter a betrayal, and waited. His reply came almost instantly. Daniel. The kind where I don't have to explain myself. The kind where I can just be. No expectations. No judgment. Just fun. Fun. That word sliced me open. Fun was what we used to have. Spontaneous road trips, midnight drives, silly dances in the kitchen. But apparently my husband was no longer satisfied with the kind of fun we shared. He wanted something else. Something, or rather someone different. The seduction begins. The conversation spiraled quickly, faster than I could have imagined. He complimented Clara's smile. He said she had eyes that looked like trouble in the best way. He told her she seemed like the kind of woman who could keep a man on his toes. I had never felt so invisible. It wasn't me he was describing. It wasn't us. It was a fantasy. And the worst part? He was pouring more energy into charming a woman who didn't exist than he had shown me in months. Every haha he typed, every wink emoji, felt like another nail hammered into the coffin of my marriage. Clara. So you do this often? Meet strangers on apps for fun? I needed to know. Was this just a one-time slip? Or had he been doing this behind my back for longer than I dared to imagine? He hesitated, his typing bubbles appeared, vanished, reappeared. Finally, Daniel. Not really. Honestly, I made this profile just to see what's out there. Didn't expect to actually match with someone like you. I almost laughed. The line was so transparent, so painfully rehearsed, that if I hadn't known it was my husband, I would have rolled my eyes and swiped left. But Clara played along. Clara. Lucky me then. Guess I'm the exception. Daniel. Definitely. You're way out of my league, honestly. That's why I had to message you right away. My chest tightened. This was the same man who once told me I was his dream girl. Now he was repurposing the lines, handing them to a ghost. Testing him. I couldn't just let the conversation float in shallow waters. If I wanted the truth, I needed to push him deeper. So I baited him. Clara. Out of your league? I don't buy that. You look confident in your photos. You must get a lot of attention. He didn't even hesitate. Daniel. Not as much as you'd think. My wife doesn't exactly make me feel wanted anymore. My hand shook so violently I nearly dropped the phone. There it was. The dagger. I wasn't enough. The woman who cooked for him, supported him through layoffs, stood by him through his father's death, celebrated his wins, carried his burdens. I wasn't enough. I had expected cheating. I hadn't expected him to paint me as the villain to justify it. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat and kept going. Clara. That's tough. Everyone deserves to feel wanted. Daniel. Exactly. With you I already feel it. I can tell you're different. You're exciting. Exciting. That word again. Like I was a stale meal and Clara was a five-star restaurant. The turn. The messages grew bolder as the night bled into morning. He asked Clara what she liked to do behind closed doors. He hinted at fantasies, pushed boundaries, tested her reactions. And through it all, I responded carefully, walking the tightrope between keeping him interested and keeping myself from screaming. Every response I typed was like poison on my tongue. Clara. You don't even know me yet. How do you know I'm exciting? Daniel. I know enough. I know that you're making my heart race, and that hasn't happened in a long time. I almost threw up. The cruelty wasn't in his words, it was in the ease. He wasn't struggling, conflicted, or hesitant. He was smooth, practiced as if he had done this before. The proposal. And then came the message that froze me in place. Daniel. So what if we met up? I stared at the screen. He was serious. This wasn't just online flirting anymore. He wanted to cross the line into reality. Clara. Already? You don't waste time, do you? Daniel. Life's short. Why wait? We could grab a drink, talk. See if the chemistry is real. Chemistry. He couldn't even wait. I hesitated, fingers trembling. What if I said yes? What if I let this go all the way just to see how far he'd fall? And then, as if he hadn't gutted me enough, he added, Daniel. Don't worry, I'll take care of everything. I can even make it worth your time. Worth your time. I read the line over and over, my vision blurring with tears. Was he offering money? To a stranger? To a woman he thought was just another conquest? The man who once cried during our vows was now bargaining for a night with Clara. The countdown. I decided to test him one last time. Clara. When are you thinking? Daniel. Tonight. Clara. Tonight. Daniel. Why not? I can sneak out after dinner. Say I'm working late. 3 hours from now. 3 hours. That was all it took. That was all the loyalty of our marriage was worth to him. 3 hours notice and he was willing to risk everything. I sat frozen, phone clutched in my shaking hands, staring at the man I thought I knew snoring softly beside me. 3 hours. That's how long I had before my entire life would explode. Part 3. 3 hours to truth. The moment the message appeared, a chill ran down my spine. 3 hours. 3 hours until Daniel would cross the line from text to reality, from fantasy to actual betrayal. My chest constricted, my mind racing, every possible scenario spinning faster than I could process. For a few seconds, I just sat there, phone clutched in both hands, staring at the screen as if looking harder could somehow erase the words. 3 hours. I felt like the world had tilted sideways. My body was buzzing with adrenaline, heart pounding as if it wanted to escape my chest. I thought of all the nights I'd lain next to him, thinking I knew him. All the years of shared memories, kisses, and whispered promises. And now, with a few taps on a screen, all of that seemed meaningless to him. Panic sets in. I couldn't breathe. My mind screamed at me, call him. Delete the app. Leave the house. Confront him now. But I didn't. Because another darker part of me, the part that had set this trap, knew the truth would only reveal itself if I played it right. If I stopped now, I'd never know the full extent of his betrayal. I ran to the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face, and stared at my reflection. My eyes were wide, pupils dilated. My lips trembled. I looked at the woman staring back at me, someone I barely recognized. A wife pushed to the edge, forced to watch the man she loved flirt with a ghost. I needed a plan. Mapping the encounter. I thought of everything. Where would he suggest meeting? A bar nearby? A cafe? A park? The app allowed him to send location pins, but he hadn't yet. He was waiting for me, or rather Clara, to respond. I had to think fast. Clara. Tonight? Good. I can make it work. Where should we meet? I waited, feeling the seconds stretch into minutes. Daniel. There's a quiet bar on Main. Not too crowded. I can be there in 3 hours. Main Street. Quiet bar. He even suggested the time to minimize the chance of running into someone he knew. He was careful. Smooth. Calculated. Every word he typed confirmed what I had feared. This wasn't a lapse. It was deliberate. A pattern. And I was watching it unfold like a horror show. The storm inside. My mind was a hurricane. Part of me wanted to call him out immediately. To shout, "You're already cheating and you haven't even met her yet." But the other part, the part that had already constructed Clara, wanted to see how far he'd go. How blind could he be? Would he actually show up? Would he take the bait without hesitation? The thought made my stomach twist in both disgust and dark excitement. I went through the motions of preparing myself, though not for a meeting with him. I needed a disguise, a presence that wasn't me, but still human enough to be believable. I went to my closet, rifled through jackets, scarves, hats. I even considered sunglasses, though they would have been too conspicuous inside the bar. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed constantly with messages from him, each one tightening the noose around my chest. Daniel. I can't wait to finally meet you in person. You have no idea how long I've been waiting for someone like you. Daniel. You're going to make this night unforgettable. I can already tell. Every line was like a punch. Every word a knife. I could feel the echo of betrayal in every syllable. Calculating the trap. I had to think several moves ahead. The plan was not to confront him directly, at least not yet. I wanted him to expose himself fully. I wanted proof. I wanted every hint of his ego, every flicker of his arrogance captured before he could hide behind excuses. So I texted him back. Clara. You're bold. I like bold. I deliberately added a wink emoji, something casual, playful to keep him hooked. And he fell for it immediately. Daniel. You have no idea. I'm full of surprises. He didn't suspect a thing. My heart raced. Every response I typed was part of a psychological chess game. I had created this illusion and he was walking straight into it. The countdown accelerates. Time slipped away, minutes dragging into an unbearable countdown. I made a mental checklist. 1. Phone fully charged. 2. Emergency contacts ready. 3. Clara's persona flawless. 4. Escape routes in case he got suspicious. 5. Record every message. My fingers shook as I typed, every tap a small victory, every emoji a calculated risk. And then I realized something. Daniel wasn't just chasing a fantasy. He was chasing his ego. He wasn't after Clara. He was after the thrill of being desired, the validation of seducing someone new, without realizing that the person he desired most was lying in bed beside him every night. The realization hit me like a freight train. He wasn't leaving me for Clara. He was choosing his own ego over me. A glimpse of his true face. The more he typed, the more his true self emerged. Confident, calculating, self-centered. He didn't hesitate to flirt, didn't pause to consider feelings, didn't care about the vows he had made. Daniel, you have no idea how tempting you are. I've been imagining this all day. And I had been imagining the moment I would expose him. I texted, Clara. All this in just 3 hours? Impressive. And I watched him inflate with pride, completely unaware of the trap. Daniel, I can't help it. You're irresistible. I'm counting down the minutes. The calm before the storm. By now, only an hour remained. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, planning my next moves. Should I go to the bar in person as Clara? No. Too risky. I couldn't risk being recognized. Instead, I plotted to send subtle clues to push him further, to capture every detail. Location, behavior, intentions. I wanted to see exactly what kind of man he was when the consequences of exposure felt distant. And in that moment, something terrifying struck me. The man I had married, the man I had loved, had allowed his ego to override every ounce of loyalty and affection. He had chosen validation over intimacy, thrill over trust. And I had proof. 3 hours. That was all the time I needed to watch him unravel, to see the real Daniel step out of the charming husband mask and reveal the desperate, selfish man beneath. Preparing for the encounter, I mapped the route from our house to the bar. I noted possible entrances, parking spots, surveillance cameras. Every instinct screamed at me, don't go too far. Don't let him see you. Don't ruin the evidence. And yet, my heart longed for confrontation. My mind screamed at logic while my gut twisted with rage, betrayal, and the perverse thrill of knowing the truth. 3 hours. That was all. 3 hours until the trap closed, until the night revealed everything. I took a deep breath, wiped my hands on my jeans, and whispered to myself, let's see who you really are, Daniel. Let's see what your ego costs you. Part 4. The ego wins. The clock ticks slower than ever. 3 hours had stretched into a torturous eternity as I watched the seconds slip by on my phone, on the countdown of his folly. My nerves were raw, every muscle in my body tense, ready to either spring into action or collapse into tears. I didn't need to see him to know what was coming. Every message, every subtle maneuver had led to this moment. Daniel, my husband, the man I trusted, had crossed a line he didn't even realize existed. His ego had become his compass, and Clara, my phantom, was his map. The setup. I positioned myself a block away from the bar he had chosen. From my vantage point, I could see the entrance clearly. People passed in front of the large glass windows, their reflections merging with the dim lighting inside. I wasn't there to confront him, not yet. I was there to witness, to see him strip away the charming mask I had loved for years. Every nervous flutter in my stomach reminded me of what was at stake. This wasn't just about infidelity. This was about understanding who he truly was, when the veil of marriage and obligation was lifted. I had my phone ready, recording every notification, every detail. I had Clara's persona fully prepared, typed responses queued, in case I needed to manipulate him further. I wasn't just playing a game, this was psychological warfare. The entrance. He appeared at the doorway, phone in hand, scanning the bar, oblivious to the trap laid in plain sight. He looked around as if searching for a prize he had already convinced himself he deserved. His posture was relaxed, confident, a grin playing across his lips, completely unaware that the woman he had been flirting with for hours, Clara, was nowhere near him. Every step he took was a testament to the ego I had been uncovering all night. I felt bile rise in my throat as I imagined what he thought. She's coming. She can't wait to see me. I held my breath as he approached the reserved corner table he had chosen, already rehearsing the smooth lines, the compliments, the practiced charm. The messages continue. Even as he sat down, his fingers flew over the screen messaging Clara. I watched from across the street, hidden in the shadows. Daniel, I can't believe you're actually agreeing to this. I've been waiting for a night like this for a long time. Clara, I can't wait either. You're full of surprises. The arrogance, the entitlement. He was so sure, so certain that everything was in his favor. He didn't know that the greatest surprise was waiting in the wings. I typed quickly, Clara, you better not disappoint. I hate wasting time. And I sent it, watching as his eyes lit up, completely unaware that his ego had been baited into overconfidence. The psychological unraveling. Inside the bar, he relaxed further, unaware that the woman of his fantasies was only pixels, only a persona crafted from AI and my cunning. Every laugh he gave, every confident gesture, was like a dagger twisting in the back of our marriage. I felt a strange mix of triumph and horror. This was the man I had married. This was the man I had loved. And now I understood fully what I had been missing all these years. His love wasn't for me. It was for the image of himself, validated by someone else's attention. And I had proof. The ego chooses. He checked his watch. He sent another message, oblivious that he was performing for me as much as for Clara. Daniel, I can't wait for tonight. You're going to make this unforgettable. The phrase struck me with brutal clarity. This was it. He had chosen this ego over loyalty, over intimacy, over everything we had built together. I wanted to scream, to run inside, to confront him, but I stayed back. I had to witness it fully. This was the ultimate reveal, the truth laid bare. He had made a choice, and it wasn't me. The final twist. As he waited, the phone buzzed again. I typed carefully, one last message to push him over the edge. Clara, are you sure you're ready for this? I don't play games. He replied instantly, pride dripping from every word. Daniel, I've never been more ready for anything in my life. And in that moment, I understood. He wasn't ready for her. He was ready for his own reflection, the validation of being desired, the ego boost that came from conquest. He wasn't choosing Clara. He was choosing himself. I felt tears slide down my cheeks, not from sadness, but from the clarity of the betrayal. The man who had promised forever had chosen the thrill of his ego over the woman who had been his everything. The aftermath. I left the street quietly, my heart pounding. I didn't confront him. I didn't need to. I had seen everything I needed. My husband, who thought he was charming a stranger, had revealed his true self in ways words could never fully capture. The messages were saved. The screenshots intact. Evidence, yes, but more than that, the truth. And that truth was both liberating and devastating. He had chosen his ego, not me. I returned home before he could arrive at the bar, slipping inside silently. He would walk in soon, expecting excitement, expecting applause. But all he would find was an empty apartment and the realization that the life he risked had been staring him in the face all along. No confrontation, no shouting, just the bitter, clear knowledge that I had seen the real man beneath the mask. The reflection. That night I sat alone in our living room, phone in hand, replaying every message, every line, every flicker of arrogance. I realized something profound. I hadn't trapped him to humiliate him. I had trapped him to see him clearly. And I had. He had chosen himself over me. His ego had outweighed 8 years of love, of trust, of shared life. And in that choice I found both heartbreak and freedom. Because now I knew the truth. And truth, no matter how painful, is always stronger than illusion.